Greetings, folks. This is Gerard from West Texas. Bought a piece of raw land. Come along on the voyage from living in a tent to building an automated ranch. That off grid lifestyle, where it at? Get that freedom, y'all. Good morning, everybody. It's Gerard from West Texas. Still pretty cold. I think we're in the 20s actually this morning, which is ridiculous. I don't have the temperature sensor, automation, blah, 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 all that stuff going on in the greenhouse. However, what I'm thinking on that is I'll do a web page where you'll be able to see the greenhouse temperature, maybe the temperature in the cob house, which is in here. I'm interested in the temperature inside the wall because I have some experiments and that I'm doing outside where we're putting bottles inside the wall for increased insulation. But anyway, the point was having a web page where you could real time see what's happening here in terms of temperature. But anyway, so it's cold, not working at the moment. I shall be getting out here and after I do this video. But the purpose of this video is I'm trying to figure out how to answer the comments. The most important thing that I get from social media actually isn't making content. It's your comments. It's people who've done this, people who have a little more experience in certain areas, or even saw something online. And that gives me, oh, let's turn some lights on. That gives me more information. So I come here because I learn a lot from your comments. So I try to read every comment. So I think I'm gonna do a playlist for maybe top 10 comments as I sit down and I try to respond. I literally try to read every comment, and I know that might be weird, but when you're out here, there's not a whole lot to do when it's dark, but we've just passed the winter solstice, so things should be, what is it, like a few seconds worth of daylight more every single day, something like that. So anyway, this will probably be within a playlist for comments. We'll see how it works out. But and these aren't the best comments, you guys. These are just comments that they're hard to respond to in a paragraph. No one likes to read too much on a video website. You rather see a video, I think, than read a bunch of text. So I respond to your comment in text, and if it's interesting and it's something that's on my mind at that moment, I'll do a video and you'll land in the top 10 comments. But the first one comes from Messiah Mindset 2964. And the question was, where do you find bentonite clay? How much was it? How much did you use? And what size pond? So I've only done one major pond in my mind, major being a test pond. It was 30 by 30 with the bentonite clay. Some people here call it bentonite clay. Others call it Benson clay. Either way, it's a very expansive clay. West Texas is full of very expansive clays, to the best of my understanding, listening to a geologist. It has something to do with the last cycles that certain clays go through. It's getting dark again. The last cycle. I don't want to spear on y'all. The last cycle that clays go through before they become rock. And so I've got lots of it out here. And I'm pretty sure it's bentonite because that's what most people call it, although one did call it Benson. So I have it, it's all over the property. It tends to be on the high points, so you have the arroyos, the wash channels, and then the higher points, it tends to be on the higher points. If you drive through it, you'll get your truck stuck in it. When it expands, extremely. It's easy to find because after it rains, it expands and then it shrinks and there's major, major cracking. So I harvest it is where I get it from. My understanding in terms of cost is that it can get pretty pricey. So people who don't live in areas that have lots of bentonite clay, they'll buy them for hardware stores and different suppliers in these big white bags, which is what, there are a bunch of factories around here who have these, which, they're sending them all over the country. But anyway, hopefully that answers the question. I'm no expert when it comes to sealing ponds. I don't want anyone to think that I am. I'm just learning. I was a pond builder in Pennsylvania, and we used liners. And I do have a few liner ponds out here. But when you're doing a bigger pond, lakes, and you're learning how to naturally reseal ponds or floodplains, you don't want to use a liner. So anyway, but I'm no expert. Next question came from Big Organics 5753. If you had, oh, okay, right, I remember this one. If you had a tree with needles, it can condense. This has to do with the condensation of water that I find in the morning. But his point was, if you had a tree with needles, it would condense that fog and drip it in a perfect circle underneath. I've seen it in nature. I've seen it happen in nature. And you're talking about the ponderosa tree. So, brother or sister, I don't know which one you are, big organics. I do recall in a couple documentaries they were talking about the needle points of insects and plant surfaces. I'm a weird plant guy. It's one of my other fascinations that actually collect that water. And I think it's one of the beetles. The water runs off its back and it runs over its back or over its head, and it collects that water. So yeah, no, I've looked at that, and I'm actually trying to tie that with the atmospheric water generator. So as you know, I'm working on the Peltier devices, which I ordered a bunch more. I already have some, but I've got a different design in mind I want to do. But in looking at the way water collects on those points of needles and plant surfaces and insects, there's a company that manufactures a micro needle like blanket surface, and I think they're using it for dew collection in places like Israel. So I was looking at getting that, or somehow creating the micro needle surfaces. I think someone said you can do them with 3D printers. I just don't. I can't see how a 3D printer or a over the counter one anyway will get small enough. But the smaller that needle, the more water condenses because it's a very small surface and it gets into the dew point and all that stuff. So yeah, I've seen that. Very interested in that. But I thought about tying that in with the atmospheric water generator instead of using heat sinks for the water to condensate, using those points where theoretically you should be able to collect a lot more water. The water should condense a lot faster. But it's fascinating. You guys don't know what they're talking about. Should definitely take a look into it. That's how insects and plants survive in the desert, is they collect that dew. And most of the plants out here have needles. As my kids say, you know, the plants have knives. I had a few of my friends. But I've noticed that the most thriving, I always thought that was because the cattle are being grazed out here, and this is the way they protect themselves, which is true. But it also could be that they're getting droplets of dew, you know, from the needles as well. And so the majority of plants I see don't have the big thorns like the mesquite to keep the cows and the elk and the deer away, but they have the very small needles, the little bushes, and it might be because they're using those for collection of water. So yeah, I am familiar with that. That is quite fascinating. Next comment comes from Matthew Wernick 2342. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right. And it is in reference to the smelling the ammonia by the totes the water tower have on the top of the hill, and it could be, and I suspected that it was a mountain lion marking it. And what Matthew said is marking territory. 200-pound mountain lions, not uncommon. And so yeah, it does kind of seem like it's a mountain lion that was marking because it's rare. What someone told me was that bobcats, they'll mark on a regular basis if you're on their territory. Mountain lions in, I think, Colorado and certain places have ranges of over 120 miles. So very, very rarely do they circle back in the territory. When they do, they kind of mark what belongs to them. So it could be that, because it's very rare that I smell that up there, but it's a very strong ammonia scent. Hopefully it is a mountain lion. I love them, but hopefully they stay a little bit of a distance. It would be amazing to see a mountain lion out here. I've only seen tracks once. But the ranchers say they're out here a lot. Next comment comes from Trensit, if I'm pronouncing that right. This is exactly what I'm wanting to do. I just bought my first house ever, but I don't know how to make money to let my job go. Please show us everything. We all need humans doing this. So I wasn't sure if that was a kind of a comment on greening the desert, moving off grid, or farming automation. I will say, though, that, you know, my 2 cents on making money outside of a job, you know, without getting political in any way, because I'm trying to avoid doing that here. You want to find out what your passions are. See, I get up and I work every single day, and I love it because it's not work. So, what did most people do for Christmas? I don't know, but I know what I did. I broke the flywheel on the Bobcat. I was digging ponds. I did laundry and a couple other things. I think I worked on the fence line and I played with. Yeah, no, did I let the puppies out? I think I played with the puppies. I love what I do out here, and it's not work. The best way, in my opinion, to get rid of a job that most of us go into because it makes money is to find your passion. Once you find your passion, it's not work anymore. You'll do it from home. You'll do it from on top of a hill. You'll do it in the wild. You'll do it, in the city. So, and I'm not anti-job or anything. It's just that, you want to live the best life you can live. And the best life you're going to live is if you're efficient, doing lots of work, but it does not feel like work to you. But as far as, the moving off grid thing, yeah, it does make a lot of sense. There were times where moving, off grid were expensive and challenging, and homesteading was hard work. Those times are long gone. We have the automation to make things just work a lot better and a lot easier. So it doesn't make sense in my mind to pay $3,000 a month living on grid when you can have the same level of comfort for $300 a month off grid. But of course, that has to do with how much money you have to put into it to get your project started. And if you're willing to build it up over time, or if you just want it right away. So we'll certainly talk more about that in the future. But I agree with you that people, we need a new way to live. And it doesn't mean everybody should move off grid, but there's some of us that, we're going to have a higher quality of life if we have a bit more freedom than we do paying bills. There was a spot in the TV show called, goodness gracious, I've been watching them. It's 1923, 1883 in Yellowstone. And I think this was 1923. It was the beginnings of this, the automation period, in which we go through a lot of different automation periods, which I want to talk about in a minute, where they were bringing in dishwashers and washing machines. And the guy was on the street selling, the dishwasher and washing machines, and the family was trying to figure out, so you want us to buy that, which would make our life easier, but our life will be harder because now we have to pay you for electric, which means we have to have money, which means we have to have jobs. And, if you guys have watched this show, it's a great show. It'll kind of explain that comment a little bit there. But anyway, this is one of the journals on dams. Debout Doors 06 Sig. Great info. Where do you get the bentonite? Oh, okay. I explained that. So that kind of just went along with the other comment, which is I collect my bentonite. The amount of ponds I want to do out here, just to ensure that I have water for multiple years, or as long as I can anyway, if we go through another heat wave, is to do big ponds. All the ranchers out here have big ponds. And the smaller ranchers are the ones that don't have, the right plot of land. When that water dries up, they're hauling water. And that's why I lost 3 trailers this year. I got one back up and running. I'm working on the second. I'll get the third one back up and running soon, too. It's just hauling water is a horrible, horrible thing. You definitely want to collect as much water as you can. And it syncs up with greening the desert, not just ranching. When you have water in these sealed clay ponds, water is still seeping into the ground. It's increasing the vapor, the humidity around the pond. So plants and animals are picking up all of this. And so this is where ranching and greening the desert kind of sync up. There's a lot of people feel that they oppose, and I'm not one of those people. I think that when you're ranching the right way, you absolutely are bringing back the ecology and you're greening the desert. So anyway, so that's why I don't buy the bentonite. It would be insanely expensive. Jim.com 1972 wrote, do you need to keep building your check dams higher and higher? Oh, every time they fill in to slow the water down again? Or is it just a gravel ground, more porous and absorbent, so you don't need to worry about holding the water back anymore? And so and by the way, guys, this is like fresh. I just read the comment. I responded to the comment, but I'm gonna answer. But Insane Tuna responded with the perfect response, which I'm have it on the screen. And it comes down to, what are you trying to do? I have check dams, and this has to do with when you put in your check dams, it backs up the sand while the water flows through with the finer particles and the clays and things. It depends on what you're trying to do. When I do check dams, Well, okay, let's say it the right way. When I got my kids to do the check dams, because 98% of all the check dams out here, they did. I've done a few, but young boys with strong arms and strong backs. I got strong arms and I got a strong back, but my back does not work how theirs does, and I do not want to have a bacchiotomy. I don't know what a bacchiotomy is, but I don't want to have that. That sounds bad. I don't want to slip discs or anything like that. So while I do, move rocks a lot while they're not here, they've done the majority that are here because I learned from Jeff Lawton, which if you guys don't follow him, you absolutely should. The man is brilliant. But when you put your check down, Zephaniah Peary is the other one. But when you put check dams in, what happens is the sand backs up. And you can use that sand, right? Like, so in the garden for drainage, I'm bringing in lots of dried manure from a rancher. I'm cleaning out his stalls with the bobcat, and I'll bring in the dried manure, but that manure does not have good drainage, so when it rains, the water will run right off it like it does desert soil because it's sitting out here, so theoretically it makes sense. But when you add that sand to it, you make your own soil, so the water hydrates and drains in, and that's what so you can harvest that sand for drainage. I've done that. You can build the check dam higher. Why? Because the higher you build it, the more it spreads out the water, and that's a great thing for rehydrating the soil. You can build it higher and make a sand dam, and you can look those up. That's what a lot of them do it in Africa, where they store water in the sand dam. So the water will actually sit there, for long periods of time after the flood is gone, after the rain is gone, slowly hydrating the ground. And in some examples, they pump that water out and they use it for their cattle or whatever. So there are a lot of things you can do. Oh, and the other one is I've noticed that when I and the kids, that's how I put I before the kids. And I call them kids, they're not, they're young men. But anyway, when because it's a we working together thing. When we did the check dams, because I did about 1.7 of them, I've noticed that it holds the sand, and the sealing clays, right? The expansive clays stay in the water and flow down. So where we did the check dams above the other dams, I've noticed those dams have held water longer because the sand is not coming down. Remember, sand is what helps the water drain and hydrate into the soil. It's the clays that seal it more. So the more sealing clay that makes it past the check dam, less sand and rock, the longer that dam is going to hold water. Now, mind you, these are arroyos. I don't think that they'll ever totally seal. I'm not sure I want that to happen. I just want the water to slowly be released. And the perfect scenario is having a dam that's mostly sealed, that's in an arroyo, so the water's going through rock channels under the dam that aren't eroding the dam, but it's creating a stream. So the cool thing you could do in restoring streams is you could do 10 check dams, or you can do 10 big dams all the way up in arroyo, check dams above them. As they slowly seal, the top one's releasing water at a trickle. The second one's releasing water at a trickle. The second one, and so go all the way down to 10 dams, save millions of gallons of water that's slowly released for months, or even weeks after a rainstorm. That provides more water for the ecosystem. So it just really depends on what you want to do. I know that was a long answer, and that's why I kind of rather do comments this way because, writing all that, nobody's reading that. I wouldn't want to read it. Next question, the comment comes from Our Rocky Dream. If you guys don't follow Our Rocky Dream, you should. There's another couple that are greening the desert. I believe you guys are in Arizona. Anyway, great update. Are you going to be building them up now? Okay, I think I kind of just answered that. Also agree with Insane Tuna. Yep. Spreading seeds is why I put the comment here. Spreading seeds in there will speed up the process. And we didn't get to Insane. No, I skipped over Insane Tuna's comments over the couple. Insane Tuna, you might want to follow this person. This person actually, they know a heck of a lot of what they're talking about. So in terms of spreading seeds in the check dams and spreading seeds in the swales, like natural, species that grow out there. So this is what I've been doing is that when I go for hikes, I recognize different plants. Again, I'm kind of a plant geek, and there are certain plants out here that are very rare. There are certain flowers that I see only growing in places where I put gardens and swales. Seeds can sit in the ground for hundreds of years and wait for water. And when that water comes, they sprout right back up. A good example, I think it was a squash or pumpkin found somewhere in like Montana or Oklahoma that they thought was extinct, but it came from a species the Native Americans grew. And they put water on it, seed popped and grew. So there are a lot of seeds out here that are just waiting for the water to come back. Because remember, everything is in a cycle. Dry lands become wetlands, wetlands become dry lands become deserts, deserts come back to dry lands, become wetlands. Processional cycles all over the planet because everything is a cycle. So plants have learned how to survive those cycles by just in their seed having the ability to sit in the ground at 50 degrees for hundreds of years. So I'm noticing different things pop up, and I'm more interested in what's rare than what's abundant. And so when I go for hikes, I collect seeds from rare plants that I see, and most tend to grow in arroyos. Most tend to grow in places where there is increasing water. And I've spread a couple of those seeds. I haven't seen a lot of productivity from it, but I haven't done it a lot. I'm building, writing software, fixing, doing mechanic work, making videos, and like all of this, taking care of dogs and puppies, all of this, it limits how much time that I have to do certain things. But that's kind of what I look forward to. There's one plant, I have no idea what it is. I'll have to show a picture of it. I can find one quickly, but it's got a little fruit on it. And it mostly grows. It looks kind of like more of like a pumpkin, but it's got like a green fruit which turns yellow. And I'll show it down the road. But that seems to be abundant in the channels. I think it's something that the cows eat. Water washes through, washes the seeds in, gets in sand dams. And this is what our Rocky Dream and Insane Tuna were explaining, is that nature's doing this anyway. All we're doing is speeding it up. See, I don't think we're better at doing nature's job. I think we can use technology to help nature do what it's going to do anyway, but do it a bit faster because it's beneficial to nature and it's beneficial to us. Next comment came from 123 Home Free. Okay, and I wanted to get to this one where he or she said, no automation is shite. We need free farm lands, work trading to camp, and some of the farm's food. So I want people to look at automation philosophically. I'm an automation engineer. What I am doing, and I've done my whole life, is taking modern technology and making life more efficient. That's called automation. That is exactly what automation is. A shovel is automation because we used to dig with our hands. A wheelbarrow is automation because we used to carry that dirt in our hands and on our backs. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? A car is automation. A tractor is automation. A garden hoe is automation. All of these things are automation. So using, robotics is absolutely no different. Using timers for water beds and channels and drip line, all of this is just automation. Automation, for some weird reason, without trying to get political, has got this horrible name attached to it because we fear it's going to take our jobs. And while I'm not going to go down there, I'm just going to say human beings have always been creating a more efficient life. That is never going to stop. The current generation will take the modern technology and try to make life more efficient. And that's what human beings do. We are creators. So in terms of being anti-automation, I'm not. Does the 1.0 version of every automation suck? Absolutely. Never buy the 1.0 computer, the software, the operating system, the car, the airplane. Never fly in a 1.0 airplane. Don't do it. Don't do it. Not unless you got a parachute. So I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. But when you look at automation from, a philosophical perspective, it's just what we do, making life more efficient. It's not a horrible thing. I think that and you talked about, free food and farmlands. When we use automation, we can grow food in places we can't normally grow food, which is like out here in the desert, which is why a lot of farmers have left the Chihuahuan Desert because it's too hard to grow in modern means. With automation, it's a lot easier. like aquaponic systems and pumps and using the farms of the future, in my opinion, and it's not a bad thing, will be done with a smartphone. So you'll have one farmer growing more food than what 10 farmers could in the past. And that's a great thing because that means the price of food is going to drop. That means the price of freedom is going to drop. That means our quality of life is going to go up, and the quality of life of the farmers is going to go up. And that's what we want to do. We can't stop that, you guys. We want to keep marching forward, but I will also admit that you don't want to do the 1.0 version of anything, which is why I always do my own automation. I don't like any out-of-the-box automation. I like to do it myself, and I like it to be open source because it means what I do, I can modify, I can fix, I can give it away freely. So small farmers can use it, which allows small farmers to compete with the big corporations. I've worked with big corporations my entire life. Like I said, I switched teams. Everything I do is going to be for free. That automation, if you don't want to use it, don't use it. I love automation because it's fun. But as far as growing food and gardening, I'll always do that with my hands. Because for me, personally, it's a hobby and it's fun to get in the dirt. All right, let me see. I brought the same comment again, and I'm going to limit these to 10 comments, so we're wrapping it up. Got 2 more comments. Let me see. Adrian Mitchell 9819 said, have you looked into Beaver analog dams? Okay, right. They're cheap and easy to build. They're very effective. So I think what Adrian meant, what you meant was Beaver Dam Analogs, which I'm the most horrible typer on the planet. Y'all aren't going to beat me at just putting gobbledygook in a comment. It's not going to happen because I'm always typing fast. I'm apologizing to everybody ahead of time. When I reply to your comments, you're going to have misspelled words, bad grammar, commas and periods and exclamation points where they're not supposed to be. Okay? I'm in a hurry. And a lot of times I don't have time to go back and proofread. So I appreciate the grammar Nazis not coming from me. So anyway, Beaver Dam Analogs. And I looked into it. And so what Beaver Dam Analogs is, I'll put a link in the description so you can go look in what a Beaver Dam analog is. And it's just how it's a means of us making dams, effectively check dams in a wetland in the area, how beavers did. Because what it is, it's using posts in the ground and you're whittling through junipers or other things that trap water at multiple stages going all the way up a riverbed, a wet riverbed, right, in a wet area. And they work fantastic. So to answer the question, I've heard of them, Adrian, but when you reminded me, I went back and looked at them. And here they don't necessarily work. However, I do believe the idea of check dams came from beavers, because why would we think of, putting multiple dams going up a riverbed and creating ponds? I think that's where check dams came from. I have no idea, but it's just how I'm thinking. Out here, you can't do one initially because most of the arroyos, like the erosion is so bad, you're just on a rock surface. So you're not putting any posts in those rocks where you can, but drilling into that rock's not something I'm going to get into. But as the check dams build up sand, I think what I'm going to do as an experiment is do a Beaver Dam type analog, put a few posts in the ground, whittle through probably mesquite, which is what we have the most of out here. See that traps, branches and cow poop and bigger logs and sediment and yucca coming down and making like a beaver dam out here. So I'm gonna give it a shot. Appreciate the reminder. But yeah, I think beavers came first. And we learn from observing nature. And here we go, Insane Tuna, there you go. Which I probably need to, in the future, look at the order I do the comments, because they feed together, because you guys reply to each other, and I appreciate that. And again, guys, I don't have any favorites at all. It's just, you make a comment, I'm like, I'm thinking of that. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, I get all excited and stuff, start wagging my tail like the puppies. and so it's just worth talking about it in a quick video, which ended up being 30 minutes, as opposed to typing it all. Insane Tuna wrote, and it should be on the screen. Should be able to read it. That filled up fast. This had to do with the erosion video, right? You don't need bulldozers to work the land. Just strategically place dams. Will do most of the trick. Yep, awesome. Have you ever heard of Jeff? I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Have you ever tried to throw some of the natural seeds in the creeks, which is what he talked about, or she? I don't know Insane Tuna yet, but I look forward to following this person. I think it would work reasonably well. I mean, over time. And I think this is the wrong comment. I think the comment I wanted to jump in on was you'd mentioned Jeff Lawton. And so I think I already kind of mentioned that. But Jeff Lawton is huge, you guys. He's a brilliant man, brilliant man. What I do is in his wheelhouse. He's not doing anything in my wheelhouse, right? I learned a lot of what I know in watching his lectures and his videos in terms of greening the desert. You know, building swales, what he's doing in Jordan, what he's doing in real deserts. I'm working in a dry land, okay? He works, you know, and here we can get 12 inches of rain a year, which is phenomenal. He works in dry lands where some years it doesn't rain, right? Some years that, you know, they might get an inch or 2 inches of water. And so it takes a lot longer to green those deserts. You know, the Chihuahuan Desert isn't that bad, but the man is brilliant in terms of picking tree species and letting you know what you got to do to green the desert. I'm in there. If you don't follow Jeff Lawton, you should. That was a good reminder. Insane. He has a channel on here. I forgot the name of it. I'll find it and I'll put a link in there. But he goes through everything from growing to building up your soil. Using, I like the chicken method. I'm mostly interested in that, in using livestock dung and the chicken, sifting through it, making it compost, and within a few weeks of them just picking it apart, keeping it aerated, you just pile it back up, and so on and so forth. You know, building the soil and then putting it out there on your garden or your farm. So anyway, that's all I got for right now. If this works out, I will see you guys next either frequent ask question video, which is not really what this is. It's just comments that I thought were, you know, something I wanted to expand on in that moment. So anyway, you guys have a great day. This is Gerard. Each one teach one. I need a good way to close, and I just don't have one yet. Bye-bye.